Doctor Who Series 7 may be one of the most disappointing series in the show in my opinion. This is going to be a long video. We've got the Pond's exit to discuss, Clara and the Impossible Girl arc, 3 Christmas specials, 3 of them, the 50th, the Paul McGann minisode and the Eleven's Regeneration, plus Daleks, divorces and possibly the worst Cybermen episode in the show's history. This is Doctor Who Series 7, Too Much of Nothing. Okay, like I've said, this is going to be a long one, and I can't be bothered to spend too much time talking about this. The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe is pretty dull. It once again tries to take a classic book and meld it with a Doctor Who sci-fi whimsy, and yet falls pretty flat. There's some nice moments in it. I actually think the episode is at its strongest at the start. As soon as they get into the woodland world, it suddenly becomes very boring. Bill Bailey's character is nothing, the Royal Wood people look great but they don't do anything that interesting, and Cardinal Sin Time, how do you do an episode based on The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe and don't give me a scary ice witch? Or like a massive Turkish delight that eats children? Something, just something. The final scene is lovely, it is simple and nice, but overall it is a pretty meh outing. I used to hate it, it's not as bad as I remembered, but it just exists. It's there, Claire Skinner's in it, Alexander Armstrong plays a stalker and Amy has a water pistol. The end. Series 7 as a whole really is a season with so much going on and yet constantly feels underwhelming, and I think personally that's captured from the very first episode. Asylum of the Daleks is just an odd 45 minutes of telly. It's got a breakneck pace, I do think the runtime flies by, however for once that's kinda a disadvantage. The episode is trying to explore so much and yet it feels like we never get to sit with anything long enough to really get invested. I think the initial concept and setup is actually pretty good. The Daleks, the Doctor's greatest foes, have to ask him for help. That's fun. I like it. I think the asylum setting itself is pretty neat. I know a lot of people think this would work better as a Cyberman episode, and although I do think that's a fair point, after a rewatch I don't think it would actually change that much other than the set dressing. I think for the most part it all looks great. There's some odd directing choices. This random snap cut to Matt Smith make this line feel incredibly cringy, more than I think it actually is.
Who do you think?
But on the whole, the weirdness of the place is captured perfectly. I love the bit where Amy sees the people dancing. It's got a Twin Peaks vibe to it and it's just weird, and I like weird. But for me, however, there are 3 major things that annoy me in this episode, starting with the Daleks. Right, let's get this out of the way. I'm not a fan how Moffat writes the Daleks. Although he's a Doctor Who super fan, I get the feeling that the Daleks just don't excite him as much as the other iconic elements of the show. I mean, we are on his 3rd season as showrunner, and I don't think we've seen a Dalek exterminate a single person yet, and I think that's insane. That's like bringing back the Pating and putting him on a diet. No, that gremlin boy eats and the Daleks exterminate. It's just the fucking rules. The Daleks calling the Doctor the Predator feels odd because that's basically them calling themselves prey, which feels slightly out of character. And there's a cool idea to be had with the Dalek puppets, and yet I just don't like them. I don't know why, maybe it's because they look a bit silly, but I never liked this addition to them. But that's all individual complaints. Overall, I think Moffat struggles to make the Daleks feel menacing. In the RTD era, there was a sense of danger and doom around them that's just missing here. It's an era where I become quite aware how silly they look. It's odd. There's some nice moments. I think the whole egg thing with Rory is good, but they just don't hold my attention. Also, this episode seems to back out of the ending of Series 6 immediately. At the end of the wedding of wedding is right. Wedding is with a W, well done. At the end of the wedding of fuck's sake, no, At the end of the wedding of River Song, everyone in the universe thinks the Doctor's dead. It's almost like a soft reboot for the show, taking the main character down a peg. And I think there's a fun storyline to be explored there. And yet, the Daleks just know he's alive. I want to see what these killing machines would do if they thought their greatest enemy could no longer stop them. It just makes the ending of Series 6 feel a bit of a cop-out, even more than it already is, because it literally leads to nothing. And my last nitpick with the Daleks in this episode actually comes at the end. I don't like the resolution to this story. The Daleks not knowing who the Doctor is just feels pointless in my opinion. Most shows would fucking kill to have characters with this legacy. At this point it's nearly 50 years of the Doctor and the Daleks hating each other. There's a rich and detailed history between the two of them which makes them feel so important. Stripping them of that just so they can scream the name of the show at the end feels pointless. And ultimately turns out to be pointless as it never really comes up again. Also, the Doctor just leaves. He knows the Dalek camps, he knows this is the Parliament of the Daleks, and yet he just gets in the TARDIS and goes. And usually I'd be okay with that, but it feels underwhelming since the last time Eleven properly met the Daleks, he was furious that they got away. I just don't think there's a strong narrative this era with these villains, which is a shame. I don't think they need to be used as much as the RTD era, but I still want something richer from these iconic foes. Secondly, the writing of Oswin pisses me off. It's been said a lot of times that Moffat can't write women, and personally I think that's a massive sweeping statement that just isn't true. He does however have a tendency to give a lot of his female characters the same traits, and unfortunately these include flirty, a little horny, and sassy with a sitcom edge. And I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, there's nothing wrong with any of that, but due to it being quite constant, it begins to feel more like a trope than a well-rounded character. Oswin falls into this for me. She spends a lot of the story flirting with the Doctor and Rory. She's very quippy, as if she's in a sitcom. I think that I Was Going Through a Phase line always feels more like a male fantasy than representation, and I want to make it clear, I don't find her character in this offensive, I just find it annoying. And I remember being quite worried at the time that this was going to be her full character when she becomes a companion. And lastly, my final negative of the story is the Amy and Rory subplot. I'm just going to say it, it doesn't work. I understand where it came from, I get what Moffat is trying to do. It reads to me that he realised that he didn't really do much about how affected they were of the plots of Series 6, and he's trying to fix that. But this is just insane. Firstly, breaking them off screen is a nutty choice, and yeah, I know Pond Life exists, but that just doesn't count, it feels odd. Also, they feel really out of character in these scenes. Like, cool, I know they're angry at each other, but I don't believe the Rory that we've been following would say something like this, even if he was angry.
Thought you were just pouting at a camera.
But the worst thing about it is that it goes nowhere. They break and make up in the same episode. It is the ultimate B-plot with little substance. And listen, I love a character plot. I love character dramas. I would probably eat this up if it was given the time to breathe, but it just isn't. This just isn't a plot to introduce when you only have 5 episodes left with these characters. And so far, I still think that they should have left at the end of the God Complex. Closing time, wedding a river song, doctoring the wardrobe, and this doesn't really add anything that's worth ruining that lovely send-off. I will say that this scene does fucking hit. The performances are great, they go for it, and even though I don't like the storyline, they sell it. I feel for them. I think with more of a build-up, this would have been a pretty perfect payoff. God, this is episode 1 and I'm already moaning a lot. Let's hope the next one's better. Oh, fuck. I get why some people would like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I mean, it's meant to be the fun one, and if it's your kind of humour, you'll like it. I can't stand it, to be honest with you. Firstly, great title, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, perfect. But due to budget reasons, we don't get nearly enough dinosaur action, and I feel like I've been lied to. I just want a good dinosaur episode, please. I know it would be expensive, but just find a way to do it, I'm begging you. It also definitely has one of Chibnall's faults at the heart of it, which is overloading a 45-minute story with far too many characters, leading to many of them feeling one-dimensional and slightly pointless. It's cluttered, this episode feels cluttered. The Mitchell and Webb robots deserve to be blown up. I don't find them funny. I feel the comedy. With the whole episode actually, you could feel how hard the humour is trying. It doesn't feel natural, it's all very forced. And I know that this is going to upset a lot of people, but I don't care for Brian. The man is a nuisance. I just don't get why you're suddenly introducing unseen family members in the last few episodes of The Ponds. And I don't get why it's Rory's dad. Surely just make it Amy's mum or dad, as we've already met them briefly. And why is the Doctor friends with a big game hunter? Solomon killing the dinosaur and the Doctor acting like it's an evil thing to do doesn't land, or one of his crew would literally do the same. I'm moaning again. I'm having a moan. Okay, positives. David Bradley kills it in this one. He's the best bit. He is given such a good dark performance, and you can tell he just loves playing the villain, and he's so good at it. The script just suddenly goes up in quality during his scenes. When it's allowed to get darker, it suddenly works. However, this does harm the tone of the overall episode, as the comedy just doesn't gel very well with these dark, sinister moments. I like that Doctor is so dark at the end of this one, but he's so fucking infuriating for the most part that it doesn't feel earned. This episode really has Eleven being written as that eccentric madman, and I don't feel I need to write it like that because Matt Smith is already bringing that with his performance. I love that it's a Silurian ship, that's a great bit of world building. The last shot of Brian having his lunch overlooking Earth is beautifully simple, that's lovely. So there's some good bits, it's okay, yeah, next one. I actually really like this one. Yeah, some of the jokes don't land, yeah he talks fucking horse, but let's ignore that because I don't want to be seen as a moody online hater. I think this episode gets the tone completely right. The moral uncertainty of the Doctor is pitched perfectly, really allowing Matt Smith to shine in the lead role. Adrian Scarborough is brilliant as Jex, finding a lovely balance between his softer and darker tones. A lesser actor may have accidentally played this a bit pantomime-like or melodramatic, however he just grounds it. He's not a good man by any means, but he's more complicated than a generic snarling villain. The scenes between Amy and the Doctor is lovely. It's the first time in this series that I'm actually happy they're still here, allowing the show to explore the Doctor's fear of them leaving. However, they are still sidelined in this one. Rory doesn't get to do much at all, and it's odd because they're going soon. Surely you want to use them as much as possible, but never mind. The design of this episode is lovely, the cyborg looks fantastic. I used to find the ending a little bit of a letdown as the Doctor and Jax's issues are left somewhat unresolved, however after rewatching it I really like it. I like that not everything is tied up in a neat bow by the end, it's just nice, it leaves the audience some questions to ponder. It actually is quite a grown up episode and yet manages to still make it family friendly with that distinctive charm that the show has. And you know, it's not a groundbreaking episode of Doctor Who, but it's bloody strong for an episode 3 and has such a distinctive style. It's trying something slightly different and I love that. The western setting is great, I like the egg ship, big egg, love the big egg. And it delivers on its promise. I get Doctor Who does the western genre, fantastic. This is why Dinosaurs on a Spaceship doesn't do it for me, the cool dinosaurs are barely in it, which feels like a broken promise. Which, to be fair, is one of the traps Power of the Free manages to avoid. It promises a boring premise and delivers on that in buckets. Okay, that was a bit harsh, there's actually some lovely stuff in this one. I think the concept is great. This ridiculously slow invasion is such a simple idea that could have made for a banging episode. I just think the episode sometimes struggles to find the excitement in the mundane, leading to some sitcom style story beats that feel too similar to the comedy in episode 2. However, I do like Amy in this episode a lot. The scene where she talks to the Doctor is just lovely, the dialogue is so sharp and feels incredibly natural. I've seen some people say that they think Moffat wrote this scene, and I don't think so. It is very similar to Chibnall's writing style from his theatre plays. I've said this many times. Chris Chibnall, good writer, but a bad Doctor Who one. It isn't one of his strengths. I find Brian pretty fucking insufferable in this one. However, there's some nice moments. This scene is one of the best of the episode. Kate is also introduced really well. I really like the scientific side of UNIT that is portrayed in this episode. I just find the plot overall pretty weak. The aliens at the hospital are never explained. The actual plot overall is barely explained. And I know Steven Berkoff was a nightmare on set, so it's possible that has something to do with it. However, the rest of the episode still has its problems. There's just a lot of padding, barely a monster. You know me, I love a monster, and so far this series is lacking. We open with the Daleks, but then 3 episodes in a row without a proper monster doesn't feel great for the beginning of a series. Even more so when we're about to have another dreaded mid-season break. So the first half of the season has all been leading to this. After 2.5 series, the Ponds are exiting the TARDIS for good in one final adventure, featuring River Song, the Weeping Angels, and New York. I think this episode is interesting. It is full of creativity, and although it has its issues, there is a lot to enjoy. Firstly, the entire cast are on top form. Matt Smith is excellent in this one, along with Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill. Alex Kingston is great. I like that River is dialed down a little bit in this. She feels less like a carry-on character, which is nice. I have absolutely no idea where in her timeline this takes place, but that's not necessarily a problem. I like the style of this one, this film noir take is really fun. I wish the directing matched this more, sometimes it's a bit too bombastic, which doesn't quite fit the genre. I adore the cherubs, they're so creepy, I wish we got more of them. Rory goes through so much in this. He gets zapped, gets locked in with the creepy cherubs, gets zapped again, watches himself die, jumps off a roof and gets zapped again. That is insane. He must be fucking shattered. Although this episode is incredibly fast paced, it is at its strongest when it slows down a little, giving us those slower, more intimate scenes. The bit where the Doctor demands River to get her wrist out without breaking it is brilliant, so is the reveal that she couldn't do it. The emotions in this one, it's really jam-packed with teary moments and they work. Moffat kinda pulls a Russell, the characterful emotional moments cover up a lot of the nonsense. And there is some nonsense. The Statue of Liberty being a weeping angel is ridiculous. I understand where the idea came from. It feels like a pub idea. You're sitting around with your mates, getting a bit piddled, talking about Doctor Who, someone's gonna suggest the Statue of Liberty is a weeping angel. 100%. The thing is, it doesn't work because you have to break literally all of the rules of the creature for them to be a creature. Firstly, how the fuck does it move? There's always someone looking at that thing. And secondly, if every picture of an angel is a weeping angel, there should be thousands of the fuckers walking about. It's one of the biggest things that annoys me in storytelling. It's similar to magic. I don't care what you do, but once you've established the rules of your story, you have to follow them. Otherwise, it feels like cheating. Also, I do think this is probably the least scary of the Angel episodes. I don't know why, but it doesn't have the same horror vibe that these creatures are crying out for. I'd love to see an Angel episode directed by a proper horror director. I want them to take this sound out every time they move. I want to see them do cool things with shadows and stuff. Like, there's so much you could do visually with them as well as sound. Sound design is such an important thing in horror genre, and it needs someone who's experienced in horror making. I've seen some fans say that the Angels should be rested because there's not much you can do with them anymore, and I think that's insane. These monsters are brilliant, they just need someone with a vision to come in and give them a distinctive feel and identity. And lastly, let's talk about the plot holes. It's almost impressive how many plot holes are crammed into this 45-minute episode, so let's go through some of them. And I'm saying some because I know I'm gonna miss a few. First one's a biggie. Why can't the Doctor see Amy and Rory again? Like, okay, he can't go back to New York, but they can travel somewhere else and he goes and picks them up. Or travel with River with a vortex manipulator. We know more than one person can use one, as seen in Sound of the Drums. And you could argue that because they read the names on the grave it's fixed, but that's very loose. I think this show struggles with fixed points at the best of times, but hanging your main character's exit on a very convoluted version of it feels wrong. Like, if they had actually died, yeah, that's fixed, I can believe that. But reading a gravestone? Nah, that's too flimsy for me. Call them! Stop fucking crying and give them a ring. The TARDIS phone reaches all the time and space. This is the issue. Their whole exit, which is actually written and performed incredibly well, falls apart as soon as you try to apply any logic to it. Because once you do, it makes the Doctor seem kind of stupid. It's hard to sympathise as an audience member when you can think of literally 5 ways that the main character could fix the situation. Also, it kind of makes the last 4 episodes feel a little bit pointless. Each episode prior to this one had a moment about the Ponds growing up, getting older and getting on with their lives. They're slowly becoming more and more distant from their time-travelling friend. It's the main plotline for these characters in this series, and yet this ending doesn't fit that. Friends becoming distant is such a raw, real-life scenario, so a timey-wimey, paradox-filled conclusion feels kind of out of place. I would have preferred the more simple, down-to-earth goodbye. I think it would have been sadder. They just say goodbye and the Doctor can't do anything about it, he just has to respect their wishes. Or alternatively, have the guts to kill them off outright. This ending does feel a little bit like having your cake and eating it. And then River turns the Doctor down, and that doesn't feel in character at all. This feels like Alex Kingston is too busy to do a whole series, so they have to come up with a reason why she doesn't stay with him. And I just don't think she turned him down. She loves this man. I don't know, it's messy. It's messy. But like I said, the emotional moments are done so well, it does cover a lot of these problems up when watching it. It's just when actually thinking about it and dissecting it for this video, I've noticed how flimsy the plot is. And then that's it. The credits roll and we have yet another insufferable mid-season break. God, I am moaning so much. I don't want to keep moaning. Let's hope the next one is, oh, cock. The Snowmen is better than The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe, but it still has its issues. Unfortunately for Moffat, he knocked it out of the park with his first Christmas special that all his others failed to live up to that amazingly romantic and fantastical tale. Here we do get some of that magic. The Doctor living alone on a cloud is a lovely visual with that fairy tale-like wonder that we've come to expect from the Smith years. Victoria Clara is great, Jenna Coleman has such a great energy in this one, and thankfully she is given a much better script and character than she had in Asylum of the Daleks. The Snowmen themselves look a bit silly, but they're quite fun. They've got a charm to them, and I applaud Stephen Moffat for trying to make snowmen scary. It doesn't quite work the whole way, but that's okay. Murray Gold's soundtrack is beautiful in this one, it looks really good. I know people like the tweed, but I fucking love the Doctor's new look. I'm not a massive fan of this TARDIS, it's basically the Capaldi TARDIS, but in the Capaldi years they light it so much better. Like, it's still good, it's a good design, but they don't quite find the tone of it yet, and they do with Capaldi. Vastra, Jenny and Strax are in this one. I think these characters are like Marmite, you either love them or hate them. I think they're fine, well, that's not Marmite then, is it? Talking nonsense, I'm wasting everyone's time. I think they're fine. I think sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. The comedy doesn't always land. I don't understand why Strax is back. He died. He fucking died. Like, one little minisode saying he was actually asleep is not funny enough to undermine his death. Actually, let's talk about that. People say that Moffat likes killing off characters, and I'm sorry, that's nonsense. That's just blatantly not true. His first episode, we get this line.
Just this once! Everybody lives!
And then in the library one, we get this.
Everybody lives.
And then we haven't had the Daleks exterminate anyone yet. He brings Strax back. The Ponds kinda die, but not really. Later in the series, he kills off Jenny and then brings her back within 10 minutes. We'll talk about the whole Clara thing in series 9, Bill in series 10, Osgood dies, but then not really Osgood. I feel like a lot of side characters who die in this era come back by the end. He brings the fucking Brigadier back, restrain yourself, Moffat. Rory, fucking how many times does Rory die? Delirium? What's his name? The blue guy. Yes, I know he's a head in the box, but I think it fits. Rory a few more times for good measure. He brings the Time Lords back. Irene Adler, different show, but I'm counting it. And then other writers within the era too. Why do these guys come back? He was eaten by a wall. These guys, you died. We watched you die. No one's allowed to rest in this era. They never find peace. Danny Pink stays dead. He's touch and go for a minute, he's given many options to come back to life, but ultimately, he stays dead. Danny Pink. So yeah, Strax is back. The gang are actually fine in this one, it's Christmas. As long as you've got a drink in your hand and a belly full of turkey, they're manageable. Ian McKellen and Richard E. Grant are both great, but they are underused. I'd love to have seen more of them both, just camping it up a bit. I love the Ice Lady. We didn't get a scary ice witch in the last Christmas special, so he's making up for it here. Thank you, Moffat. I adore that Victoria Clara plummets to the ground and yet still looks bloody gorgeous afterwards. Literally not a scratch. I think that's hilarious. But for me, the worst part of the episode, and I don't know if this is controversial, but it's actually the pond scene. I think Moffat at times writes some beautiful poetic stuff for Doctor Who. However, sometimes you feel like it's trying too hard. I do not believe if you had one word to convince someone to help you, you would have picked the word pond. That doesn't work. Pond, not children, not Christmas, not something to pull on your heartstrings. Nope, pond. That's just a word. It could have been anything.
I gave her the one-word test.
What did she say?
Blancmange. Literally the same thing. Then Victoria Clara dies, the Doctor's ecstatic about it, and he runs off to solve the mystery of the impossible girl. I don't know, it's fine, it just doesn't grip me. There's not enough big spoon people. Fuck yeah, now we're talking. I love the spoonheads, they're ridiculous, they don't do anything but just look at them. That's hilarious. The Bells of St. John is an insane episode. It starts with the Doctor as a monk, he saves a plane from crashing, dries up the shard, Celia Imrie is actually an 8-year-old, the villains are spoons, what was Moffat drinking, and where the hell do I get some? I think Stephen the Moffat gave himself a difficult challenge. He basically has to introduce his new companion for the 3rd time. That is not easy, and honestly a challenge that most writers would never give themselves, but Moffat is both Scottish and insane. Actually, this is a really good point for a tangent. I have ADHD, a tangent is my drug. I think it's obvious from my constant moaning that I'm not a massive fan of this series. However, if you listen to Moffat in interviews, I get the impression neither is he. I think he had a tough time on this one behind the scenes, and I do want to give some credit where it's due. He tried new things this series. From the constant changing opening titles in the first part of the season to trying to give each episode its own kind of genre and feel. Honestly, what lets this down is they don't go hard enough on the genre pieces. Shit, I'm moaning again. The fact a main companion leaves halfway through the series, the high concept plots, the shifting tones, the bold choices, this isn't a man running on autopilot. He never really does, he always pushes the show in new directions and you can really feel the love he has for it. You can feel it in the Bells of St. John. It's not an episode I particularly like, but there's moments of greatness there. I adore the whole hacking into people's emotions, that's just wonderfully dark. I think one of my biggest issues is that overall it just feels a bit too Sherlock-y for my taste, and I think 11 is becoming a caricature of himself, and this continues throughout the rest of the series. But there's still some nice stuff. Clara is written better here, we do get some stupid lines like the Snogbox bit, but for the most part she's pretty fun, definitely elevated by Jenna Coleman's performance. Her and Matt Smith just have a wonderful chemistry together, it's incredibly natural, and that's why I kinda hate it when the writing tries to force it. The young love romance they're going for feels unnecessary, especially as they barely commit to it. I think just let their performances speak for themselves, it would feel more down to earth and real. Also, Clara being such a mystery kinda strips her from any real character growth. She feels pretty fully formed in this series, she doesn't really change much as that's not her main role. Instead, she's the question mark driving the story arc forward. It's a shame, I never really liked the Impossible Girl thing. I think Jenna Coleman is so good that she doesn't need this mysterious storyline hanging over her. We'll get into this in the next video, but I much prefer Clara in Series 8 than Series 7, for many reasons. Unfortunately, the rest of the series does kinda plod along. It's just got an odd feeling to it. It feels different, very separate from the first half of the season. They even changed the opening titles, and although I love these ones, I think they look fucking great. I would prefer the series to feel consistent. This doesn't feel like the same series of the show. It's messy. We're back to being messy. The Rings of Akhaten is okay, the music is lovely, but the plot's not that gripping. Also, no good monster, which is a shame as there wasn't really much of a monster in the last episode either. I like the big speech at the end, mainly because of Smith's performance, but I think the whole segment goes on far too long, what with Clara and her bloody leaf. It's just a bit too soppy for my taste. Big sun god being defeated by a leaf doesn't work for me. Why can't this show do good resolutions for evil gods? I think Cold War had all the right ideas on paper. Base Under Siege, Ice Warriors, a stacked cast, kind of insane, and yet it kind of falls flat. We spend too much time with this bloke singing Hungry Like the Wolf rather than the fun alien action, which is a shame. I really like that it breaks out of its suit. It wasn't something I was expecting when I first watched it, and I think the director does a great job at keeping the creature obscured most of the time. Then this happens. Bad. Bad. Restrain yourself, Gatiss. What were you thinking? Fear of the unknown is one of the most important aspects when it comes to horror, and they just abandon it right at the last second for no reason. It looks like a boiled tortoise. I will say the pacing is really decent in this one, and when it works, it works. It just stumbles a lot throughout. I think the setting is good, the mood it creates, it's very dark, cold and claustrophobic. I wish the humour had been cut. I wish this show would sometimes be brave enough to do a serious, scary one without feeling the need to write quippy dialogue. Also, the ending's a bit crap. He just leaves. That's meh.
I gave her the one-word test.
What did she say?
Meh. Literally the same thing. Okay, we're getting through it. Come on, John, for the glass vase. That's a reference no one's going to get. That's from the British game show Bullseye, and I say it all the time. Moving on. Hyde. Hyde is an episode that could have been brilliant, and I think it chickens out of it. Haunted house, creepy haunted house, that should slap. But we leave the house so many times. I want to stay in the house. I want to feel encased by this overwhelming creepy atmosphere, but it keeps breaking it constantly. Also, once again, we don't need the quips. Have faith in your story. I don't like the monsters. I don't like that they're misunderstood lovers. I think visually this episode's good. I just wish they fully went for the haunted house gothic horror genre. There's something wrong when the best bit of a ghost episode is a romance between two characters we don't know and will never meet again. Like, yeah, the subplot should be good, otherwise what's the point in it being there? But the best bit? Kinda ridiculous. And it's at this point I begin to realise I don't feel connected to the Doctor and Clara's relationship. I don't quite believe it. There's moments of gold. The bit where she talks about being a ghost is lovely. It's like whenever they cut out the fluff and the flirty banter, it suddenly works. I don't know, this episode just isn't for me, which is a shame because this one should be my shit. I love ghost stories, I love gothic horror, and yet it's not one. Let's hope the next episode is a bit... oh, bollocks. What happened this series? Dear God. Okay, the positives. I like the concept. The concept is strong. Matt Smith is pretty good in this one when the script allows him to be serious. I think Clara's pretty strong in this one too. I actually like the zombie things. I think that's fun. It is a shame that this is the cheap one. They literally keep using this blurry effect to try to hide the budget. And it's funny because this is a concept that should not be the cheap one. This one needs a budget. That being said, the cheapness is quite charming at times. There's a classic Who feel to it at points, with everyone running down similar looking corridors. It's mainly held back by the three supporting characters. I don't know what happened here, but it's just not good. I try not to comment on people's acting a lot as I'm an actor myself, but Christ, I'm sorry, but some dreadful line reads in this one just takes me out of the story every time. Also, why did they trick their brother into thinking he was a robot? That's insane, and kinda adds nothing to the story being told. It doesn't feel thematically relevant, and it doesn't get resolved. Like, time resets, so they just never tell him? He's kind of a bit nicer at the end, but not really. That's insane. This series is insane. Okay. I like the Crimson Horror. Maybe by this point I'm just worn down, but I do. I like it. I think it's fun. It's not brilliant. The Doctor stuff with Jenny is fucking awful, but the actual plot is quite neat, if a little bit silly. I adore Diana Rigg in this one. She's just given such a camp villainous performance that suits the style of the episode. I adore Mr. Sweet. He looks great. Like, it's not a scary one, but I don't think it's meant to be at all. It's just a camp one with a gothic flair. The gang are annoying at times, but I don't mind them as much in this one. I think it looks pretty good. I adore Rachel Sterling in this, getting to watch her spar with her mum on the screen. That's good fun. There's such an underlying sadness running throughout, and although all the emotional beats aren't always hit, I like it. I would probably go as far to say that this is my second favourite episode of Series 7. That's insane. People are going to hate me after that. I'm sorry. I'm kind of not though. I think it's fun. It does what it sets out to do, which most of the episodes this series don't. Is it a groundbreaking piece of telly? No, of course not. It's got this fucker in it. But I do enjoy it as a bit of turn your brain off viewing and just go with the ride. Yeah, I do. Please don't unsubscribe. Right, let's not beat round the bush. This is dreadful. I know I went on my closing time rant in the last video, however I think this one is slightly worse due to just how poorly the Cybermen are imagined. Giving them the ability to go zooming, to spin their heads round like a metal exorcist, having them take their hands off and becoming the Thing from Addams Family just loses everything that makes these villains so compelling. The Cybermen are best at their most simple. Simple doesn't equal bad. Simple storytelling can sometimes be the most effective. Here, everything is thrown into the mix, resulting in an incredibly messy tale that thinks it's a lot scarier than it is. Where's the tension, the threat, the danger, and most importantly, why should I care? I don't feel for the characters or the situation, what makes everything feel kind of flat. There's some good ideas here, the setting is great, the Cybermites are cool, but it's just there. The kids, God, the kids. Okay, child actors are bad at the best of times, but dear God. Like, I don't want to be mean, but they take me out of it every time they speak. They're just not very good, and the lines they are given doesn't help. They're annoying characters from the off. This whole series suffers when it comes to them because the show doesn't know what to do with them. They're just there so Clara has a job. I like Warwick Davis in this one, I think he's quite good in the role. Jason Watkins is massively underused. He is such a great actor and is wasted in this story. He does a bit at the beginning, but then spends most of the runtime just stood in the corner. And of course, we have Matt Smith playing both the Doctor and Mr. Clever. And I want to make it clear that my criticisms for this aren't to do with his performance. I think he does the best he can with what he's given. But it's the writing that just holds this back from the off. This is the Cybermen we're talking about, the emotionless, cold, foreboding villains that can't be stopped. The whole thing is about stripping people from their feelings and what makes them human. So this doesn't work. It could if the dialogue was blunt, matter of fact, scary because it's so normal, that would be great. Definitely as Matt Smith's Doctor is already energetic, giving him a villain who barely shows anything could be really fun. But he shouldn't be saying stuff like a showman, all the boys and girls stuff, spinning around. It doesn't feel anything like the Cybermen. They're not Cybermen here, they're just robots that look like Iron Man. Where's the horror? Why is this the penultimate episode of the season? Why does it end with this line?
Mystery wrapped in an enigma, squeezed into a skirt that's just a little bit too tight.
What the fuck? Like, that's so bad. Like, come on, how did that make it past the writing, the filming, the editing, and make it to TV? Surely someone should have stopped that from happening. What a dreadful ending to lead into the final. But here we are. Finally, we're at the final episode of the season. It has all been building to this. I don't know what fans think of this one. There's some good stuff here, I want to say that first. There are some lovely bits. However, a lot of great moments either get undercut or aren't given the proper time to develop. Let's start with the concept. If you've watched my Series 6 video, and you should, it's a work of art, then you may know where this is going. I don't like the Doctor dying in Series 6 because we know he's going to be fine, he's not actually going to die. And it's kind of the same here. We know whatever happens, whatever mad shenanigans are thrown our way, the Doctor's name is not going to be revealed. The question, Doctor Who, will remain unanswered, so this whole name thing doesn't do anything for me, because it's a pointless tease. I know the outcome before you've even risen the stakes. And it's almost a double whammy, because I know the Doctor isn't going to die, so going to his resting place on Trenzalore doesn't do anything for me either. And I know the Doctor doesn't have any more regenerations left, so okay, maybe it does work on a story-like basis, but then don't do the exact same thing the series prior. 2 back-to-back Doctor dying arcs seems silly. I think the first half of this episode is much stronger than the second. I think the opening titles are a fun tease, the meeting of the Paternoster gang, Clara and River, is great. I think overall this episode looks really good. Series 7 looks quite cheap at times, however this one's cool, there's a clear aesthetic running through it. Again, Matt Smith is brilliant in this one. I think this scene in particular is beautifully played. And so is the whole they were talking about my grave reveal. I quite like that. I think that's quite a clever thing without being too convoluted. It's simple but smart. I can't tell you why, but I adore the Whispermen. I know they don't do anything, but they just look so cool. They're wasted and it's a shame because it's one of the best villain designs of the series. I honestly would love to bring these guys back. I'd cut the rhyming stuff. I don't know why they're constantly dropping poems, but I'd bring them back and make them the star. I always thought you could do quite a fun thing about intrusive thoughts with them, that voice whispering in your ear. I don't know, there's something there, but I like them. River is fine in this one, not her most interesting appearance, but she serves the story well. I find this scene pretty touching. It makes no damn sense, he shouldn't be able to see her at all, but whatever. The emotion hides the flaws. The best moment for me is the moment when Jenny dies.
I think I've been murdered.
That is a brilliant last line for a character. It's tense, it is creepy, it's sad, and it is such a shame that it's undone in like 10 minutes. And I don't understand why. Jenny only appears in one more episode after this. Just kill her off. This moment is golden. It sets the villains up as dangerous. But her suddenly being brought back to life by the click of a button takes away most, if not all, of their threat. You can't have a group of monsters that can stop people's hearts while a character has a device that restarts hearts. This moment where they attack the group kind of means nothing because we know Strax has a magical reset button. It's not even plot armor at this point, it's just armor for no good reason. And it's kind of made even more silly that Jenny doesn't do anything else in the story, she just disappears again, kill her off! Obviously the main thing this episode gives us is a resolution to the Impossible Girl arc. I'm quite glad we get it so soon, mainly because I'm not a fan of the storyline to begin with. The resolution is fine, I don't love it, but I was probably never going to because it didn't grip me from the off. It makes sense, I'll give it that. There's a few sloppy lines surrounding it, I wish you'd stop going on about soufflés. Just the issue for me again is that the villain didn't feel dramatic or deadly enough for me to find Clara's sacrifice emotional. I just don't understand the Great Intelligence motives. The 3 stories he's appeared in this series feel very disjointed. I don't know what his grand scheme is. The Doctor doesn't even know he was behind the Spoonheads, and it doesn't matter. And I know he's a classic villain, but that's not enough. I wish he felt more like the big bad of the season. That's definitely what they want him to be, but it never really comes together. Also, he should have been in part 1 of the series. Series 7 really does feel like 2 seasons in one. It's very, very disjointed. And finally, we have the ending, the big reveal. The bits leading up to this moment don't really make any sense. The episode constantly breaks its own rules. We're told countless times that if Clara steps into the time stream, she will die. She doesn't, and we don't really know how. The fucking crusty leaf is back, and then the Doctor turns up and she's fine. It's also never shown to us how they get out of there. The 50 just opens like nothing happened. But of course, the main talking point is the John Hurt cliffhanger, and it's good. Like, that hits. Simple, performed really nicely. God, his voice was amazing. That is an actor's voice. I just think this is a perfect cliffhanger leading into the 50th celebrations. Right, I can't explain to you how excited I was for the 50th as a kid. Honestly, I was insufferable. Just a horrible, cringy 13-year-old who needed a haircut and some Valium. The teasers and the trailers were great, all the interviews just built up this wonderful buzz. It felt like a moment. I didn't see it in the cinema because I didn't want anyone talking or slurping or being taken ill during it. This was for me. Night of the Doctor is a minisode leading into the 50th anniversary. Now, I haven't covered any of the other minisodes because honestly, who gives a shit? But this one feels important, so here we are. I think this is actually really well written. Paul McGann is just great as the Doctor. It's such a shame we haven't got more of him on screen, but it's lovely we got this. It's intriguing, well paced, it doesn't overstay its welcome, it's good, it's just really good. If I had one little gripe, well not even a gripe, just a wish, a preference, it's just I wish we never saw McGann regenerate. It would mean we wouldn't get this minisode, but there's something fun about never seeing it. It means you can bring the 8th Doctor back whenever and never have to explain why he looks older. Perhaps he just lived a long time. It's just a preference, some will disagree. I do hope we get more of the 8th Doctor on screen at some point in the future. Not yet, we need a few seasons with no callbacks and stuff, but one day. Here's hoping. Okay, Day of the Doctor. I don't have tons to say about this one, to be honest. It's never been one of my favourite episodes, but I understand why so many love it. It's big, it's a celebration, it balances its story with fan service really well, and just as a piece of telly, it's a massive achievement. From what we know, Series 7 was apparently a mess behind the scenes, so the fact this came out like it did is pretty amazing. I like the concept of the War Doctor, I think it's handled pretty well. A surprise unknown Doctor was always going to be done at some point, and honestly a big 50th anniversary really is the place to do this storyline. I wish this was it. Personally, it's a one and done for me, but we'll get onto that during the Chibnall videos. John Hurt is brilliant in this role. He brings so much gravitas and richness to it. I wish he had less jokes. Once again, I think sometimes it's okay to play something completely serious and straight, especially when there's so many other characters that can bring the comic relief. Like, I don't need all the Sandshoe stuff. Let this man be a mourning, bitter, haunted individual, the side of the Doctor we've never seen before, because when we get it, it works. This scene here may be the best of the episode. It just works, the dialogue just sings, and it really is nice to see the different interpretations of the same character play off each other. The way they incorporate Billie Piper into the plot is kinda genius. It allows her to be part of the celebrations without treading on any of her storylines. Just good stuff, and she plays it so well, and I love that Moffat held back. We never get a scene between her and David Tennant. He restrained himself, he fucking did it. Well done, mate. I will say that I think the Time War stuff is slightly underwhelming. The lore of this battle has been built up so well throughout the revival that I think seeing it was always going to be slightly disappointing. We were promised the Nightmare Child, the biggest war of all the time and space, and it looks like any other Dalek invasion, which is a shame. Personally, the Zygon subplot isn't needed. There's enough story to mine from the Time War and the destruction of Gallifrey, and I always feel like the pacing comes to a bit of a halt whenever we go to the Black Archive. The Zygons do look great though, a wonderful design. Also, weird note, please tell me if I'm being stupid, but do these scenes look cheap to anyone else? I don't know why, but it just looks low budget. Maybe it's the blocking or the lighting, I don't know, I've always thought it. David Tennant slips back into the role as the 10th Doctor effortlessly. His suit is too tight, his hair is ridiculous, but he still pulls it off. What a trooper. And of course, the biggest moment of the 50th is the return of Gallifrey. I think Moffat kinda pulled off the impossible. He manages to bring the Time Lords back without upsetting or ruining any of the RTD era and the last of the Time Lords arc. I know some people would have been upset about it, but I think it works. Gallifrey was always going to return one day, and if not here, a showrunner may have just come on board and decided to bring it back without any explanation. So the fact we got an in-depth story about it that explores the Doctor's guilt and remorse is great, both for fans but also for the show. It cements the Last of the Time Lord arc as one of the greatest storylines in Doctor Who history and should never, ever be done again. Ever. Restrain yourself, Russell. Other highlights include the Tom Baker cameo. The All 13 scene is great. Look at those eyes. Those are the eyes of a man who knows he's a god. Clara is really good in this one. Her little moments with the War Doctor are brilliant. Honestly, as soon as she's free from the Impossible Girl story, she comes alive. I'm so excited to talk about her in the Capaldi videos. And then it ends. A great celebration of the show, which sometimes is golden and other times a little boring. People hate me for that. Definitely as I praise Crimson Horror. Fuck me, the comment section is going to be a minefield. Okay, if you've made it this far, firstly, thank you. And secondly...
Are you okay? I hope so.
It's been a long one. I'm knackered. If you're enjoying this video, please do leave a little like and a subscribe. It can be your good deed of the day. But here we go. The 11th Doctor's final episode.
I gave her the one-word test.
What did she say?
Fanny. Okay, that's the last one, I promise. I'm done. I've killed the joke. I've said Fanny now. I've gone too far. I have done so much moaning in this video, so I'm going to get that out of the way so we can end on a high note. Because although there are faults in this episode has some absolute gold. Unfortunately, this episode gives us some ultimate restrain yourself Moffat stuff. The whole naked segment is dreadful and I don't like Tasha. She's a charity shop river song and the flirting feels so out of place, especially when they're still dancing around the whole Doctor and Clara lovey-dovey stuff. The episode has to wrap up so much stuff that sometimes it buckles under the weight. It's not awful, Moffat actually handles the exposition incredibly well. It's just a shame that so much of it has to be explained in an episode that is at its strongest when it's simple. And finally, surprise Crack is back. I don't like that it returns. I always thought of the Crack as Amy's storyline, not the 11th, even though it's caused by his TARDIS. It just fits that girl who waited fairy tale vibe with the ponds. And again, its return is handled really well, it just doesn't fit really. Also, the Crack being what the Doctor saw in the hotel room is ridiculous. That should never ever have been revealed. But all that being said, the main concept of the Doctor staying in one town to grow old as he protects it is fucking magical. All these moments are basically perfect, from the writing, the performance and the directing. Everything just comes together to tell a magical yet bittersweet Christmas story. It's the little details as well. The truth field around the town is lovely. The fact that Dr. mends toys makes him like a Santa figure, and that's great. The makeup is wonderful and Smith's performance may be one of his best. He excels here. He has to balance so many different things, playful, sad, angry, lonely, all of it, and yet he never phones it in. It feels real and raw and I adore it. Handles is a great character, nearly all of the humour lands, and his death scene may be one of the best. Moffat finally killed someone off and didn't bring him back. Everything about this moment works. It is subtle and beautiful in its simplicity. Clara is wonderful in this one, especially in the second half of the episode as she watches the Doctor grow old. This episode looks beautiful and the way the Doctor gets a new set of regenerations is done really well too. Exposition that doesn't feel convoluted or forced. There's things I could moan about and stuff, but just a feeling, the tone is just rich. I like it. I'm not moaning anymore. I like it. Personally, I feel like this scene should have been Eleven's only regeneration. Him returning to his young state to say another goodbye feels like having your cake and eating it. I know I'm moaning again. Shut up. I know they probably wanted to give Matt Smith a proper send-off, but I think the majority of this episode does that already. His last words to Clara being about saving her one last time is kind of perfect. That's the Doctor. That's magical and simple. Also, I do find the when the Doctor was me stuff far too soppy. And before anyone comments, we know they were both bald here. They were both bald. They're wearing wigs. We know. We fucking know. Restrain yourself, viewer. And then, with a drop of his dicky bow, the 11th Doctor leaves us and Peter Capaldi hates his kidneys. And that's it. That's season 7. Christ alive, that was a lot. It's messy, it's bloody messy, and long. It's long. Remember when we started this with the Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe? That was years ago. Series 7 is definitely weak. It's crammed full of great ideas, but most are never properly realised. It feels like it's running out of steam a lot of the time, and even though they pull off the 50th and the regeneration, the build-up feels like padding. I don't know, there's still a lot of love and hard work that's gone into it, but I think you can feel Moffat burning out, juggling both Doctor Who and Sherlock. It's just a weak series, but with some strong standout scenes. Next time we'll be doing a little less moaning as we dive into Series 8. We'll explore the 12th Doctor's arc, Clara's new storyline, the ups and downs of Danny Pink, evil Mary Poppins, and possibly the funniest resolution in the show's history.